All right, good morning, eighth grade. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd. Can't believe we're already in June. It's really unbelievable, to be honest with you. And yeah, sorry about yesterday. I took a personal day, so there was no math work. But today we're going to go back to it. We're going to look at one of the last thing about exponent properties, which is really interesting that we haven't talked about yet, is exponents and parentheses and how you write things in math really makes a difference when you're dealing with powers and exponents. So let me give you an example, okay? We'll start off slow, and then I'll show you in the calculator, okay? So think about, let's think, my favorite number is 5, okay? So 5. Now, if you square 5, you know that that is 5 times 5, which is 25. Now, what about negative 5 squared, or negative 5 in parentheses squared? Okay, believe it or not, you're going to get two very different. So this is 25. You're going to get two very different answers for these two questions. So, what's the only difference between this one and this one is the parentheses. Okay, this is a very, and I remember doing this when I came across it by accident like 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, what? And I'll even write it again here with another two examples. I'll put it in a different color. I'll do it in pink, like -1. So -1 squared written like that is different than if you put -1 in parentheses squared. So let's take a look at this in the calculator to see the difference, and then we'll talk more about it. So if I go in here and let me just zoom into the right port of this calculator. Okay, so this is good. Obviously, we said 5 squared enters 25, right? Now, if I do -5 squared, -5 squared, so -5 squared. Now check this out. It's -25, but I thought -5 times -5 was positive 25. Aha, here's the tricky part, okay? So if I take parentheses and I put -5 and then I square it, let's do it that way, I get positive 25. So basically, a negative, if you don't put the negative inside parentheses, it won't it won't be with the power of 2. So it's just like 5 squared, but then negative. -5, when it is in parentheses, when you square it, it's -5 times -5, which is 25. So same thing. Now, if you use 1, that's even more interesting. So say I use, obviously, 1 squared is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. If I do -1, oops, sorry. If I do -1 squared, no parentheses, what's it going to be? No parentheses. It's going to be -1. But now, as soon as I put it in parentheses, -1, square it, it's going to be +1 because it's doing -1 times -1. Let's look again back at my notes. So let's fill that in here. And then I want to look at one more kind of interesting part of this. And so far, everything was squared. What if we did it to the third power and what that looks like? So again, if I fill this in, -5 squared with no parentheses is really just like 5 times 5 with the negative on the outside. And like it doesn't like it's not -5 times -5. It's kind of like that basically, which is -25. So that answer is -25. Okay, and then here, this is -5, parentheses, times -5, which is a +25, okay, +25. So if quickly looking at on this side, -1 squared like that is -1. -1 squared with the parentheses is +1. So now let's look at the number 2 and the power of 3. So what about this? -2 to the third power, and -2 to the third power, okay? All right, so let's kind of make sense of this. In parentheses, you really are doing -2 times -2 times -2. What is that? Well, let's think about it. It's negative times a negative, which is a positive 4, times a negative 2 is back to a negative 8. So the answer is negative 8. Same thing here, though. If you do 2 times 2 times 2, you get 8. And if you add the negative back, you get negative 8. So it's really the same thing. So it's kind of weird when you have a number, a negative number to an odd power. It doesn't matter where you put if you put parentheses, not putting parentheses, it's still going to be negative. So let me just let's see if I can clear all these at once. Just keep pressing backspace and clear it all for you. All right, so let's do that again here just to prove it to you. So if I do negative 2 to the third power, right? Negative 8. Same thing if I do in parentheses negative 2 raised to the third power, it's still negative 8. Okay. Same thing if I did that with huge numbers that I don't know on the top of my head. So, well, that's ridiculous. If I do like, I don't know, negative 9 to the fifth power, let's say. So negative 9 to the fifth power, right? Bam. It is negative 59,049. Now, if I, same thing, I'll get the same exact thing if I do negative 9 in parentheses raised to the fifth power, okay? But again, if I just change it, now watch what happens. This is kind of a good example. If I just change that to a 4, okay, this is going to stay a negative answer. And if I change this to a 4, this will be a positive answer. Again, I just really feel like it's a weird thing in math how parentheses and exponents make a huge difference when you're dealing with negative numbers. So I felt like this is a good lesson to do on this Tuesday, June 2nd. So speaking of today's lesson, so what you're going to do for today is really practice that rule. And then I'll give you a few more examples to look at here. So when you practice that rule, the first thing I have for you today is this coloring page, okay? So it's kind of cool, like, and it shows this little fact we just learned like a bunch of times. It comes up. So like right here, boom, negative 1 to the 15th. That's an odd. That's negative. Like there's no parentheses, and so that's just going to be negative 1, right? So now when I go here, negative 1, I'm going to just shade it like that. That negative 1 answer, I'm going to shade that top left-hand corner like this. Let's look at a couple more just because they're fun. All right, how about this one? No parentheses, negative 11 squared. Well, 11 times 11 is 121, so this is negative 121. And so you're going to shade it like that. So where's my negative 121 over here? Looks like that. It gets like this whole thing shaded. Obviously, you can color better than I can. Like that. Let's do one more where you get a positive answer. 15 times 15. Where is that one? Right here. Negative 15 times negative 15. If I remember correctly, 15 times 15 is 225, right? So you're going to go, and it's a negative in parentheses, so it's positive 225. So I'm going to shade it that way. So positive 225 is here. I'm going to get the shading like this. So you get this weird, I can't show you the whole thing, but what you're going to do is you're going to get this whole thing colored, right? You're going to take your phone or whatever, maybe mom or dad's phone or something, take a picture of this image and put it in the Google Forms. The other questions you're going to do, which I figure just because some people have been following along with these examples and some people haven't with these lessons, is you're going to try 16 where you're just going to evaluate, okay? And that rule comes up a couple times in here, and all the other rules we learned last week or two also come up. So the key is you'll be able to do out the exponents and get number answers. So when you simplify, you kind of can't do the numbers get really big or there's variables, you can't get an actual number. But when you evaluate, you can get a number. So you're going to do these 16 questions that I put on the classrooms, but I figured I would make 9 questions. These are not the questions you're doing, but they're just examples that might help you, especially if you haven't been following along with the lessons and this is still somewhat new to you. So let's go through these together, and then you'll be off on your way doing your work today. So, let's speak of what we just learned. So, negative 2 to the fourth power. The negative's in there, so negative times negative times a negative times a negative, back to a positive inside parentheses. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. This is positive 16. Quotient rule, you subtract 3 to the 2 minus negative 1. 2 minus negative 1 is 3. And 3 to the third is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. Again, answer. You're no more exponents. Here, same basis, you add the exponents. What's 4 plus negative 4? It's 0. So 5 to the 0. Anything to the 0, if you've been paying attention, it's not 0, but it's 1. Number 4, 3 to the negative 2. Cross the line, change the sign. 3 over 2, like that. Which would be, we can do 3 to the second power, 1 over 9, or 1/9. Number 5, in parentheses, negative. So negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. You got this. That's 4, 8 for this, negative 8 for this one. Negative 8 for this example. Number 6, add those exponents. 4 plus negative 2 is 2. 2 to the 2 is 4. Number 7. All right, this is that example, okay? Boom, there's no parentheses. So negative 8 squared is just going to be 64, and the negative just stays on the outside. Number 8. Oh, there is parentheses. This is going to be positive 64, because this is negative 8 times negative 8. I did that on purpose. Hopefully you see this one example. Then here, another subtraction problem. 3 to the negative 2 minus negative 4. Okay, for a quotient rule, plus a positive, that's actually just 3 to the second, which is 9. All right, so hopefully this video gets you understanding the difference between having parentheses with a negative and an exponent, and not having parentheses with a negative and an exponent, and gives you some practice examples for today's work. Any questions? Do the best you can. If you can't do the coloring activity, you just want to do these 16 questions that I put here, and you just want to do those. Spend about a half hour. Don't stress too much about it. It's going to be a nice summery day, so enjoy that. And I will see you tomorrow during our Hangouts. Have a good day, everybody.